Hello, hello. This is JD from Best MMA Picks, coming at you live here with the new broadcast of UFC Fight Night. Roy Nelson versus Barnett, and it's a UFC Saitama Japan, UFC Fox Fight Night 75, and this is going to be a stealth mode broadcast of my leans, which is going to be my internet's very iffy right now. Still in the process of trying to find a good cable internet provider here in the new town that I moved to. So definitely a little bit shaky here with the internet. So apologize if we lose connection at all. But the reason why I have the lights out, got my kids here with me these 2 days, and we're just trying to keep things low volume here. So let's just go ahead and get down to the card, and hopefully you can hear me all right. So we'll make this short and sweet. These are all just leans, like I said. Any of these can change at any time, but these are what I'm looking at as far as the card and how we bet them or how we actually choose what we bet. It's completely dependent on what we see in our footage, and usually that's made at the time of the fight, usually about half hour before each card starts. So you got to make sure that you add us to our Twitter at Best MMA Picks, or twitter.com/Best MMA Picks. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/plus Best MMA Picks. And let's go ahead and get down to business. So starting out this card, we have Roger Zapata and Shinzo Azai. Zapata's basically, I think he's a Brazilian, and then we have a Japanese fighter. Both of these guys, don't know a whole lot about them. Looked at a little bit of their credentials, and based off of what I've seen, I would give the advantage to Zapata. I think that the UFC uses a lot of these Asian MMA guys as stepping stones for some of these other fighters that they're trying to promote. Would not be surprised to see this be an easy finish or victory. Both these guys seem to be finishers, so I think that the under has some value here. I don't think that either of these guys like to go the distance on their fights. It's kind of go broke or go home kind of deal. Go for broke or go home. My prediction is for Roger Zapata. He's a TUF finalist or semifinalist, and he's actually had some performance bonuses with his finishes, submission wins, and knockouts. I predict him to probably in the fight by TKO second round. So I'm going with the under for my lean, and a lean on Zapata to win the first fight of the night, possibly even land a bonus. Don't think it's going to go the distance. Ansai also is a finisher as well, with a fairly decent record, but he's only fought mainly Japanese fighters. So the next fight we have Kajan Johnson and Naoki Katani. Johnson coming in at the favorite is almost 3-1 at a negative 284. Katani's a positive 250. Got the over-under set at 1.5, with the over being favored at negative 178 and the under at positive 150. I really like Johnson for this fight as a lean, mainly because he fights at a TriStar. He has several different camps that he goes to, and all of them are solid camps. You can't beat the experience of other fighters, as iron sharpens iron. I'm going with my lean for Johnson to win, more than likely by a technical decision. Although we could see a finish here. The over-under is set pretty low at 1.5 rounds. I think that this is going to probably end up going over, just like the odds makers suggest. However, we've seen a lot of weird shit happen, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get an early finish of a Japanese fighter that's not really well known. So, lean to go with Johnson, and my gut wants to tell me to take the under, but I have to go with what I think is a smart pick, which would be the over for a lean. That may change come fight time, so stay tuned. Next fight, we have the German judo practitioner Nick Hein coming in at a 3-1 as a 3-1 favorite at -323 against Yusuke Kasuya, positive 285. I believe both these guys have a background in judo. I think Kasuya is a black belt in judo as well. Nick Hein has really pretty impressive judo credentials, as well as just very technical striking. I don't foresee him losing this fight. I think he's very solid in his last bout. And I don't foresee that changing at all, especially against one of these no-name guys from Japan that really haven't been highlighted in the UFC. I think it's going to be a competition for Hein. Although you got to give a little bit of respect to Kasuya. He has some credentials that are pretty notable. Over-under set at 2.5 rounds, with the over being favored at -159, under at a positive 135. I don't foresee a finish here. I'd be very surprised if we did see a finish, because both guys kind of negate each other with their skill sets. But I do see Nick Hein getting the better on the feet out of these two guys. I do want to look at footage, and I probably could change my mind on this pick, but I really don't see anything else happening here but Nick Hein winning by a decision. I see it going over. So lean over and Nick Hein on that fight. The only Asian fighter that I really have been somewhat impressed with, to a degree, would be the Chinese fighter of the next fight in this card, Li Jinliang. -254 odds against Kita Nakamura, positive 225 as the underdog. We've got an over-under set at 2.5 rounds, over at -196, under at positive 165. I do want to do a little more handicapping of this fight. I have looked at a little bit of footage, have seen previous fights of Jinliang, and I have been pretty impressed with some of his victories against some actually noteworthy opponents in the UFC. So the guy definitely has a chin. He can take a shot. He can hang with some of the better fighters, actually, or some actual decent UFC fighters. I think that we may see a finish from him. The under has some value here. I'm not too sure about it, though. I'll lean on the under, though, for my lean, positive 165, and for a finish to happen here, with Li Jinliang coming away with a submission victory. Moving on, we have Mizuto Hirota and Teruto Ishihara. Hirota is a -266 favorite. Ishihara is a positive 235, and the over-under set at 2.5 rounds, with the over being favored at a -190 and the under at a positive 160. When I see odds like this between two guys that I've never heard of, I typically tend to lean with the underdog as a default. Just because if you've never really heard of a guy and you've never seen the guy fight, more than likely he's pretty evenly matched with whoever he's fighting in the other odds. So, I'm going to look at some footage on these guys. I would value play on Ishihara at positive 235, 2-1 for your money. And I think at least one of those two will hit. Be very surprised if one of the two didn't. But an even amount of money on both hits, I'm actually almost getting double my money on average. So, take it for what it is. I don't really care about a picks record. It's easy to pick favorites, but the real handicappers are the ones who can pick the underdogs, and that's what I prefer to do. I don't like a padded record like some of these other guys out here on YouTube, that are like, oh, okay, well, I did really well in my fantasy. Yeah, well, you picked 3 fucking favorites, and that's pretty easy to do when you have 4 picks and 3 of them are favorites. So, I have no respect for people like that, and I feel like the majority of handicappers, do that. I don't do that. I try to actually break down this stuff. One thing that I will say is that, have some reasoning behind why I would take a gamble like that. So, I mean, it's just numbers, right? At this point, numbers. I don't know anything about those two fighters, and I would probably stick with my decision there, even after viewing footage, because I'm almost positive that both those two guys are going to be pretty much evenly killed between the two. Maybe one guy has a grappling advantage, and that's why the odds are so one-sided. But that would be my logic there. So, moving on, we have Diego Brandao versus Katsunori Kikuno. Diego is a 2-1 favorite at -220. Kikuno is a 2-1 underdog at +196. And we did see Diego Brandao. He's just not looked really that great to me. I mean, he's fought some guys that just kind of ran him over. Basically, he was a stepping stone for Conor McGregor to move into title contention. I mean, ever since he's been knocked out, by a couple guys and submitted, never really have bought into his hype. I thought maybe during the Ultimate Fighter, with so many guys being afraid of him, I thought that maybe he would amount to something, but he really has not. I mean, really has failed to impress me. On the other hand, Kikuno has definitely had some surprises and some tricks up his sleeve. He seemed to do fairly well against bull rush type fighters. He's a smarter, higher IQ fighter, very disciplined, has that kind of like mentality that a lot of Japanese fighters have, that very disciplined, make no mistake, very tight striking, and doesn't leave a whole lot of room for mistakes. Diego Brandao is complete opposite to that. He bull rushes guys, gasses out, and the next thing you know, he's on his back. So I think the smart play here would be probably an underdog bet. I don't know if I'm going to touch it or not, but I'm going to lean with Kikuno to win by a either submission victory or decision. More than likely a decision. And over-under is set at 1.5 rounds. I'm going to go with the over at -123. I think Kikuno is a smart enough fighter to stay alive the first round, weather the storm, and then possibly, lock in a grind on Brandao for the decision victory. So I think the smartest play here would be the over 1.5 rounds at -123. The unders 1.5 rounds is set at +105, and I think a lot of these odds makers are banking on Brandao coming away with a KO. Don't think that's going to happen here. I just haven't been impressed with him. I think Kikuno does have great hand speed and some good defense. He has some good counters. I've seen him knock guys out that shouldn't have been knocked out probably. So, I'm not like totally sold on Kikuno, but I definitely think he can hang. Brandao may land a lucky shot and end it in the first round. It could happen. Both these guys have been tagged before. It could go under definitely, but I don't think that it's worth what the odds makers are telling us that it is. I think the over's the play. Moving on, we have Takeya Mizugaki versus George Roop. Mizugaki's the 2-1 favorite here. He's a very disciplined fighter, very tight striker, although his striking has kind of waned a little bit. In his last two fights, he just has not looked like himself. Ever since his Dominic Cruz KO changed him a little bit. I thought he would last a little bit longer there. I think the fight before that, I forgot who he fought, but he lost and just didn't look really good. Roop, on the other hand, Roop is kind of one of those hit and miss guys. When he's on, and when he's cold, he's cold. But the one thing that the guy has working for him, he's coming in as an underdog at 200. One thing that he's got going for him here is length, and he's got probably a reach advantage. I don't know what the exact reach is on the two of these guys. Probably look it up later, but I know that he's got super long arms for his weight class. The guy, uses his distance fairly well. He likes to come out with flying knees and surprise guys. The guy is he's balls to the wall, fighter, bites down on his mouthpiece and goes for it. And I like that about the guy, but against a guy like Mizugaki, lately that seems like that has worked. It worked out for Dominic Cruz, although Dominic Cruz, I would argue, is like twice the striker that George Roop is. Roop has some decent, legit striking and he's a very good fighter, underrated. So I'm going to go here with my lean to be with George Roop at positive 200. The over-under is set at 2.5 rounds, with the over being favored at negative 202, and the under at a positive 170. I don't know why, but I see this one possibly going under. It's just my gut. I could see a flying knee or even a counter from Mizugaki landing on Roop and for the fight to end early. I think both these guys are legit guys that can finish people, although they tend not to. Mizugaki, especially being the safer fighter out of the two, I see one of these guys making a mistake somewhere or getting caught. I'm going to lean with the under at positive 170. Moving on, we've got Kyoji Horiguchi at negative 139 against Chico Camus at positive 295. Camus looked fairly impressive in his last fight. He was a huge underdog. Came in at like positive 800 or something like that in his last. Horiguchi has kind of waned a little bit on his talent. He had this huge hype train behind him. Still does have a hype train, but I think people saw him kind of come down to earth a little bit. He did not look that great in his last fight, in my opinion. Was not super impressed. He should have came away with a finish, a quick finish. Camus, on the other hand, has been able to hang with just about everybody. Never had a problem hanging with the best of the best, and sometimes even frustrating the best of the best. I can see that happening here with Horiguchi, although Horiguchi probably does have a little bit more skill and a little bit more natural raw talent. I think Camus is, evolving as a fighter. He's becoming he's kind of coming to his own style. And when he tends to push the pace on guys and make them fight his fight, they tend to get really frustrated. And I potentially see that happening here with Horiguchi. And we could possibly even see Horiguchi not knowing what to do with himself. So I'm going with Camus as a lean at positive 295. Over under set at 2.5 rounds. I see this one going over definitely at a negative 253. Both guys are really tough. They've got chins. They can take shots. And they typically tend to go to the distance even against some of the best fighters. So those are my picks for that one. Moving on, we've got the co-main event, which I'm excited to see. Gegard Mousasi versus Uriah Hall. Gegard is coming in, obviously, as almost a 5-1 favorite. Excuse me. And Uriah Hall as a positive 400 or 4-1 underdog. The over-under set at 2.5 rounds, with the over being favored, negative 166, under at positive 140. My gut's just wanting to just fight that this is going to be one of Uriah Hall's highlight reel moments. I don't know why. More than likely Mousasi's going to grind the swing where he pins Hall, either up against the cage or just outstrikes him. But I really don't see him outstriking Hall per se. Mousasi's a snake. He goes for wherever the Achilles is of his opponent. And then he's a constrictor. I mean, he just wraps around him and just freaking crushes them. Very, very slick fighter. One of the best in the world, in my opinion. I don't see Hall winning this one, but something tells me that there's something funny about the odds here that doesn't sit well with me. I feel like this one could be the parlay buster for Vegas, where Hall lands a flush hit on Mousasi and KOs him. Kind of like the way he did on his last opponent, the gimme fight that he got, which I actually was on the underdog because I felt like the underdog was actually had a legit shot against Hall with the way he has been fighting. That may have been enough of a momentum swing for Hall to get enough confidence here to think that he can actually compete with a guy like Mousasi. And Hall has actually fought against some of the best fighters in the world, actually, which would, he's fought and when I think he went to decision with Chris Weidman, who has actually finished most guys. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that it was a 3-round decision that he had lost, but he hung with Chris Weidman in there. I did see some of that footage a while back. And I think Hall can hang with the best of the best. no doubt in my mind about that. You know, whether or not he can win the best of the best, that's another story. But we may see a breakthrough here for Hall. I don't know why I like the 4-1. I think, you know, the odds should be a little bit tighter here with the way things have been. It seems like Hall's mental game's changed a little bit, and sometimes that's all it takes for a fighter to get that confidence in themselves. A lot of it can be really completely mental. This could also be a fix as well. I'm going with my lean here. I think Hall's going to get it done. I don't know why, but I'm going to lean on a small play on Hall, and I'm going to lean on the under here at positive 140. If you bet the same amount on both, you're going to make money because one of those two is going to hit. You'll at least make 40% of your bet. So good luck on that one, whatever people choose. I don't know if it'll be an official play or not. I may just play it personally, but we'll see what happens. And the last fight, my personal favorite here on the card, Josh Barnett and Roy Nelson, two heavyweight fighters. Josh Barnett coming in as the favorite at negative 278. Roy Nelson at a positive 245. The over-under set at 1.5 rounds, with the over being favored at negative 172 and the under at positive 145. Barnett's definitely the favorite here. Why he's such a heavy favorite, I do not know. I have not been impressed with him. I think Nelson has some heavy-ass hands. I think Barnett hesitates on the feet sometimes, although he's a legit striker and definitely a submissions expert. I feel like he's definitely not in the caliber of fighter that people have made him out to be, especially in the UFC. Nelson, on the other hand, is a fat type of lard. However, Nelson has fought the best in the world. He's fought the likes of Junior Dos Santos. He's fought against, I believe it was Frank Mir. He's fought some of the best of the best. And he's hung with them the whole time. And here's another thing for you. Roy Nelson's a black belt in BJJ. The guy is legit. He has, I think it's a Gracie black belt, if I remember correctly. But he is literally, I mean, he's not going to get submitted. It's going to be difficult to submit the guy. You know, if you get on top of him even, he's so top heavy that guys have a hard time, you know, getting him off once he's on top. Barnett is a big ass dude. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this whole fight's going to end up on the feet. I don't think it's going to go to the ground at all unless Nelson gasses. I don't even see this one going past the first round, honestly. I'm leaning on a play on Roy Nelson and a play on the under as well. I think by the end of the first round, one of these two guys gets tagged and gets put to sleep. And I don't think it's going to be Nelson. Nelson has a pretty good chin. We have seen him get TKO'd one time, and I believe that was Junior Dos Santos. No, it was somebody else. I don't remember who, but I think it might have been Mark Hunt that did that. One of the two guys tagged him and knocked him out. I think Nelson, you know, it depends on which Roy Nelson shows up, but it's definitely worth 2.5 to 1. I think your money's good here. I really do. Even with the 1.5 on the under, you're going to make some money here regardless. It may not be a whole ton of money if one of these two loses, but, you know, you're going to make money here regardless. So those are my two leans on that. That pretty much wraps things up for this card, and I apologize again for the lighting. Things will get better once I figure out my internet situation. However, I'm going to keep doing these broadcasts, and hopefully we can bring home some money again like we did last card. And I'm going to pretty much deliberately bet only what I think are solid bets on this next card. So you may only see about 2 or 3 plays for me, maybe 4 if they're smaller plays. But the ones that I really feel like are going to legitimately win, I'm going to actually post. I'll post personal leans and personal plays. You can play them if you want, but they're not going to be official picks. Good luck to everybody. Once again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/plus best MMA picks. And make sure you follow us as well for our live updates, pre-card. It's going to be, you know, all our official picks will be posted 30 minutes before the card. They do change. Please do not play these lanes. I have not reviewed a ton of footage on this card. Disclaimer, all of your own plays are your own responsibility. I take no action or part in losses or winnings. So please play at your own risk. And, good luck to everybody. I hope we take it home. Let's work as a team. I appreciate all feedback, negative and positive. And I do like Devil's Advocate's opinions, so please feel free to make comments on any of my picks. And, always like a second opinion. So everybody have a good night and a great weekend. I'll be working, so stay tuned, and we'll bring it home. See you at the cash window.